Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. Welcome to this week's episode, and here we are pretty much as an industry a week away from reopening the doors in England. At least I appreciate different things are going on in different parts of the country, but in fact, are we opening anyway? Pretty much the entire country is either in tier 2 or in tier 3, and that means that many businesses will actually remain closed, and many are being faced with only being able to serve people who live together and only if they have a substantial meal. We are a million miles away from the Christmas party season we would hope to be having. And I'm actually pretty shocked. I might have even understood extending the lockdown. I certainly wouldn't have been entirely surprised. And I would not have agreed with it, but I would have at least understood it as a perspective and a potential solution, although I think many of us see it as a rather blunt instrument. But what I'm really stunned by is that if you were going to release the country, that hospitality should be one of the most impacted sectors in the new rules. Now, I've personally managed to book a Christmas show, for example, on the 22nd of December. And I know I could be in an inside venue, and I know the venue pretty well, and I'm guessing perhaps at 50% capacity, it'll be around 800 people. And I'm taking my wife and the kids, and we're so bloody excited to actually be doing something Christmassy. We feel very lucky to be in the right age bracket and in the right health where we can take a risk or two. And I feel happy that there is some risk, but it's my decision to manage it. What I don't understand is that if I can take my family to that show, why can I not meet my mum for a mince pie and a cup of coffee in a cafe or a restaurant? I live in a 2-tier area. Now, not only can I not meet my mum for a coffee or meet up with a mate for a beer and a catch-up, but the really galling cherry on the cake is that over the actual festive period, the government is now encouraging 3 households to meet up in each other's houses, where transmission rates from the government's own data has already been shown to be one of the highest. Yet those same 3 families are not allowed to go out for a Christmas lunch as a family. They could be visiting a lovely restaurant, perhaps on Boxing Day, met at the door by someone in a mask, shown to a table with effective screening and plenty of space, looked after by a trained member of a hospitality team, employed by a caring company that has put an extensive amount of time and resources into training its team and providing a safe environment for them and customers alike. Yet these restaurants, employing hundreds of thousands of people paying their taxes on the brink of collapse, have been told they cannot look after anyone who does not live in the same house. Now, it seems like common sense may indeed prevail, and certainly MPs are potentially going to vote against this government kind of suggestion. And if that doesn't happen, then I really think that some sort of legal action may occur. Sad times. But I do personally continue to be a very deluded optimist. I am excited by the common sense and demand of the people that I speak with. They feel safe in restaurants and bars. They feel safe that they're well managed and they're happy to take their own risks when allowed. They want to see friends and they want to dine. I'm excited by the vaccine and I'm excited by getting through to spring and having one great big bloody celebration summer where friends and family celebrate like never before. Not until something is taken away from us do we truly appreciate it. And I think summer 2021 is going to be huge. I just hope enough of my peers in the industry can hang on in there and find a way to balance the books until spring. And then I really hope that the government just get out of the way and let us do our thing. Let us trade. Keep the VAT cut, since 5% of bugger all whilst we've all been closed has hardly given us the boost that we needed. keep the rates cut. Let us sell takeaway. Keep the terraces open and the open spaces open. Let us trade outside. Give the industry some breathing space. And I think that our leaders and our teams and the public will rally and do all it can to spend some money in our venues. We, in return, will be so damn excited to be serving again. And with that backdrop of excited optimism for the future, I was very excited this week to chat about what restaurants of the future might look like. By which I mean, now that we are clearly so loved by the local community, what can we do to become even more socially aware of our potential impact and the potential for good that we can do? How much better can we look after each other and our teams and our suppliers and our customers and our community? We are a human business, and humanity is going to be the buzzword of 2021, I feel. So Carly Trisk-Grove is joining me for this week's super positive conversation. I love Carly's story and her energy and her ethos and her hospitality adventure. As you will hear, Carly went from a hut in a park to an expensive hobby to raising £500,000 and building a beautiful cafe in that park. And along this journey, Carly realised that people were the key to all that she was achieving. Carly and her husband Ian and their team won multiple awards for their cafe, particularly around employing disabled team members and looking after the local community, who treated the cafe as their own. But Carly is only too aware of how tough a sector hospitality can be, and eventually she sold her beloved cafe to start a new life deep in Devon. But as is too often the case, the hospitality itch kept coming back, and Carly and Ian have been busy developing a new concept, OPOP, one price, one plate, with ethics and people and shared success deep in its DNA. Carly has even become a B leader, both for her home business, but also to tell others about the opportunity becoming a B-Corp presents. I learnt a great deal talking to Carly and really enjoyed her perspectives and her positivity. I cannot wait to continue to watch her hospitality adventure unfold in her newfound corner of the country. Now, our conversation talks about the B-Corps and Carly's journey and her values and how they evolved, eating meat, paying what you can afford, fundraising, and so much more. I'm sure you'll find some nuggets of wisdom in here and be inspired to continue to care about the type of business you operate or the type of business you buy from. But just before you go, remember, can you please just do two things for me? Firstly, head over to the website humansofhospitality.co.uk and sign up for the weekly newsletter so that every Monday morning you will get an email from me explaining who this week's guest is and linking you to any great resources that may have come up during the conversation. For example, with Carly, we've got her Instagram page for her new business, and Carly's personal Twitter account. Saves you going off and hunting for these things, since they'll all be together in the show notes in the email. And whilst you're on the website, you can really help me out by keeping this podcast on the air by making a one-off donation via PayPal or a monthly donation via Patreon. Both hugely appreciated. And if enough of you paid just a £5 a month, just a couple of cups of coffee, I could make this podcast a whole lot more awesome. And secondly, last thing, would you mind subscribing, rating and reviewing the podcast, please? I know you can't do this on every player, but Apple and some of the others do allow it, and it takes just a few seconds. You can probably do it on the device you are listening on right now. It's really helpful, since the more I can demonstrate that people are listening to and enjoying the episodes, the easier it is for me to convince fantastic guests to take an hour or so out of their day and enjoy a conversation with us. And the better guests we get, the better conversations you and I get to listen to, and the more inspiration and great stories we get to enjoy. Okay, thank you so much, and sorry to keep asking, but it really does help out. So with that, it's over to Carly for this week's conversation. Carly Trisk-Grove from OPOP, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Hugely appreciated. Alas, we are not face-to-face, Carly, but can you just tell people where in the world are you at the moment?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm in Tottenham in Devon, and it's a beautiful day. Crisp autumnal
Nice.
day.
Yeah, lovely part of the world,
Yeah, I'm
Totnes.
very lucky.
Very beautiful. Okay, well, I'm just along the coast in Bournemouth, so I'll send you a sort of virtual wave down the coastline. But thank you
Ah,
so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
nice,
So,
nice to
um,
hear you.
Yeah, I really want to chat to you. There's three sort of main things, I suppose, that I want to chat to you about. You're sort of famous for Cafe in the Park, and particularly, a lot of the awards that it won and its angle on sustainability and community and all sorts of stuff. So I want to talk to you about that.
Right.
OPOP, your latest, newest project, really exciting. But you're the first person on in the B Corp world. So if you don't
Ah, good.
mind, yeah, I want to start with B Corps. Is that okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of friends with one in particular with a B Corp registered company. We were also members of the SRA for many years, and I've sort of looked at it, and I've not completely been able to get my head around how it would work in the restaurant world. And there's not many other
No, no,
examples,
there really
but
aren't.
you're a B leader, I
I'm a big
believe. And when I
leader.
heard that,
Yes.
what is a B leader and
So
what is a B Corp for
it's
people who've lost us already?
absolutely. So B Corp is an international organisation that accredits businesses that want to really, as they say, measure what matters. Look at being the best they can in terms of governance, and environment and society and their customers, how they treat their staff. But it's a really kind of tight, well thought out process that not only kind of allows you to measure what's important, but allows you to keep being accountable to this kind of framework. And it's been going for quite a few years. There's I can think across the world there's probably around 4,000 B Corps, but in the UK there's still only about 100. And you're right, there's only one restaurant group, Jamie Oliver's restaurant group, even though he sadly doesn't have many restaurants at the moment. But he became a B Corp a couple of months ago, and I'm really hoping he'll lead the way for the industry. And then also Riverford, who do organic food boxes, they've also just become a B Corp, but they're the kind of only two food orientated businesses. And the process is fairly simple, but it's not easy. You go through their impact assessment and you answer questions on everything to do with your business, to do with how much your directors get paid, and to do with your maternity policy, and to do with your sourcing, and who's invested in your business, like a real deep dive exercise into everything about your business. And then you get a score, and you can become a B Corp as long as you score 80 and above. Now, it's not easy, and a lot of B Corps are only just in the kind of 80 or above category. Um, and then once you've kind of done the impact assessment, you send it off, and then they really look into you and make sure that what you're saying is accurate. And yeah, that's it. But it's brilliant. And one of the things I really love about B Corp is that you have to reapply every 3 years. So once you're a B Corp, you don't stay a B Corp. You reapply every 3 years, and after 3 years, you have to increase your score. And I love that because it shows that it's about an ongoing effort. This isn't like a one-off box ticking greenwashing exercise. This is about constantly reviewing and how to be better. So that's B Corp. And me as a B leader, so B Corp are very clever. They know that they need to get the message out there, and the best way to do that is through people that really believe in the cause. So they run a course where you can train as a B leader. It's a 5 day or 5 half-day course, and basically I'm just kind of more savvy than the average person about B Corp, so I can help people in the process of obtaining B Corp status, and that's it. And what a lot of people don't know as well is that because B Corp is only once you've been trading 1 year, so you have to have evidence of all the practices that you're doing. But if you're new, one of the things you can do is have a B Corp pending status. So you can say, I haven't actually done all of these things that I should be doing, but I'm going to, and I'm going to commit to doing them. And then you can have pending status for a year as well. So it's yeah, I can't speak
Yeah,
highly enough of it, but yeah,
amazing. So when did
sadly
you
in the
do the
restaurant
course?
world. Well, I got lucky and I did it online. I say lucky because it was a course in London, and I'm in Devon, and it was going to, take quite a lot of time. And obviously, with this new world, we had to do it online, so I did it this summer. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing.
but
Okay.
so it wasn't quite the same because my cohort, we've not actually met in person, and it's not the same.
Yeah.
But
No.
it was nice to not have to do the journey 5 times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And the plan with you doing that was because you wanted to use it in your own business, or because you wanted to help other people
Yeah,
do
so the
it, or
plan is
all of the
so
above?
so the business that we're creating, which I can go on to talk about, but the business is going to be a group of restaurants, and each restaurant in that group we want to become a B Corp. The organisation will become a B Corp, and as long as all the kind of the businesses underneath them, as long as they all operate under the same brand, they will become B Corps too. But we wanted to be able to work with our partners that are going to run these sites and help them understand what being a B Corp means. So I just felt that it was the best way to kind of really get into it and have a deep understanding of it.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I know the world of hospitality is full of amazing human beings. I know that because I get to chat to so many of them. I would imagine that there's loads of people who would love to do it, and I'm interested, I suppose, as to why more people haven't. And it's either, I suppose, it's got to be an awareness, or it's just really hard. So, what sort of things, restaurant specific, what sort of things would restaurants have to do to achieve accreditation that they might not be doing already?
Sure. So it's probably fairly similar to the Sustainable Restaurant Association. And if you look at that, there aren't lots of restaurants that have 3 stars. And I imagine it's a similar sort of thing. So it would be your sourcing policy, but they would really kind of look very thoroughly into that. But in terms of your energy supply, in terms of salaries, 0 hour contracts, whether your staff rely on tipping to bump up their salary, all the sort of practices that are not considered necessarily best practice. Um, trying to think what
Yeah.
else would be
No.
specific.
There's a good
Yeah,
there's
I
a
mean,
good few
and,
there.
and it's not easy. It's not, but I
No.
do think there's also an awareness, and I think that I do think that B Corp, now that Jamie Oliver has led the way, I imagine that it will be something that more and more restaurants will be hearing about, because I think B Corp will make a big deal about it.
Yeah, interesting. And I suppose I'm always a little bit worried, and I get I don't know, maybe in a sort of a spiral, I suppose, of confusion and maybe getting too detailed. But if you just take meat, for example, and this was sort of a question later for you, I suppose, because you still vegan? You turned vegan at 12, is that right?
Yeah,
Or
no, I'm in and out. I am at the
yeah,
moment.
okay. Okay, great. I am predominantly, and we may go off on a tangent around that. But one of the things I've struggled with is that, to be a true environmental restaurant, can you be one and sell meat? And if you do, if you can be one, and I think it's complicated because I think there's issues around, sort of circular regenerative farming and whether you actually need a certain amount of
Yeah,
animals on the land to kind of regenerate the soil. But it's
absolutely.
complicated, and I get to that point and
Yeah.
already have a migraine. And then I think, well, how do B Corp? How would they assess this kind of stuff? And I suppose it's the same with
Oh, I
Riverford.
mean, yeah, I don't think B Corp have any. They don't take any stance on kind of morally things like that. So yeah, I think yeah, it's not the soil association, so they don't have an understanding of that side of animal welfare. So yes, they probably wouldn't dig deep into in terms of that side of it. But I guess, for example, if you bought meat that was certified by the soil association, then that would probably score you points on a B Corp assessment. Um, but it isn't restaurant specific, so it would be tricky. It would be tricky for them. But I agree. And yeah, there's absolutely no judgment on whether eating meat is right or not. It's not about that.
No,
Yeah,
and
it's about the
yeah,
people that supply it to you and how fair you are and what sort of contracts you have with your suppliers and whether you honour them. And so it's probably more people orientated than animal, because it's business and it's not about
yeah.
food
Get
specifically.
it gets complicated though,
Yeah,
because then if you
very.
look at
It's
the
hugely
environmental,
complicated. Yeah.
well, yeah, because if you're using sustainable energy, presumably you're using sustainable energy because you don't want to have a detrimental impact on the environment.
Yeah.
But how you farm your food has a bigger impact than the energy we use.
Yeah.
So I appreciate I'm taking us down an unsolvable
No,
rabbit
it
hole
is.
too
And
early in the conversation.
you
But
could
this
go
is where
on,
I
couldn't
got
you?
to. I think I got to this point and went, oh, it's really hard. And if they do look into that, because I dive into this,
Yeah.
on a regular basis, both in these conversations, but also in my own business, and it's a real struggle
I don't
to
know
try
the
and find that
answer, but
balance.
I am going to find out the answer, because yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
good question, and I think probably the answer from them would be we don't know because no one's asked us yet. I imagine.
yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, to be fair, even if you do ask the question, because I ask the question regularly, and different guests will give different answers. Obviously, some people are 100% got to be plant based, and that's the answer. But then you'll chat to other farmers who'll go, well, that's just ignorance actually to
Yeah.
regenerate the soil. If you've got, and you get into the weight of the cows and go, well,
Yeah.
if the cows are out and they're not out, and this is the thing about outdoor reared cows, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, you can't let them rear outdoors in the winter because the land gets too soft, and then they destroy the land. And again, I get another
Yeah. Oh,
migraine, Carly, and
yeah.
I've gone down a hole.
It's
Okay, well, look, I think
many years of discussions.
yeah, 100%. And maybe with all of these things, it's just start the process, I
Yeah.
suppose, isn't it? And if it's continual improvement and the system evolves, then fantastic. Well, one of the questions I was going to ask is how does it fit in and complement with the SRA? Have you spoken to the SRA? Are they? I've interviewed Andrew Stephen, but it didn't come up the B Corp side. But yeah, what's
No,
their
and
take on it?
funnily enough, I'm speaking with him tomorrow about our project. No, it hasn't come up, but I have I have told B Corp that I think they should be speaking to the SRA. It's a
Yeah,
natural link, and I think
100%.
I imagine not because I've said it, but I imagine now because of Jamie Oliver, and I imagine that will start happening.
Yeah, be great. You'd imagine that there'd be some opportunities for them, some quick learnings, I guess,
Yes,
for B
yeah,
Corp, just because the SRA have spent
absolutely.
years in this
In this
field
field, yeah.
already, haven't they? Excuse the pun. So,
Oh yeah.
okay, great. Well, look, we may come back certainly to some of the topics in there. We will do, but let's just dive into to set a bit of context, I suppose, as to where your interest and passion and the sort of the OPOP journey. I guess if we just go back to Cafe in the Park, so
Sure.
your journey in hospitality was in some ways typical, not through the academic route, but you had a young family, you were looking for an entrepreneurial opportunity. What is probably less typical is that I think it was a degree in engineering, and you'd
Yeah.
worked for
Oh
Ernst
yeah.
and Young for a few
Yeah.
years. So
Oh,
can you
really
just
useful.
explain? Yeah, that's an interesting route, I suppose. Can you just explain a little bit about how you ended up in hospitality through that journey?
Yeah, well, naive and stupid at 18, I wanted to follow my boyfriend to university, and I didn't have the grades he had, so I didn't have the options he had. So the only course that I could take at Birmingham, which is where he wanted to go, was engineering. Luckily, he's now my husband, so it wasn't a wasted exercise, but I hated it. So
Really?
don't know what I was
Wow.
thinking. So yeah, 3 years at Birmingham, and then the Ernst and Young thing was brilliant because actually I'm my mum made me learn to type when I was 14, and it was brilliant because I was able to get really well paid jobs. Even I don't know, I was at university over 20 years ago. So even then, I was on something like £12 an hour typing, while all my mates were at the student bar earning £4 an hour. And so when I left uni, I temped at Ernst and Young, and I ended up getting a job on their they had this kind of team and entrepreneurial services that helped people set up their businesses, subsidiaries of their businesses both in the UK and abroad, and I got to coordinate that expansion, and it was brilliant because it was my introduction to business, and I got to learn with some brilliant people and be talking to really big clients, and be charged out a ridiculous rate because that's what happens when you work for a big accountancy firm. Um,
Yeah.
but it was
Well,
a
I was interested in that because it feels like a bit of a sort of an oxymoron that Ernst and Young and an entrepreneurial team.
yeah.
As an entrepreneur setting up in business, you wouldn't think you'd go to Ernst and
No,
Young
I
for some
know.
help,
I
but
mean,
it does
I
exist.
know that one of their clients was Dido, not the Dido everyone's talking about at the moment, the Dido as in the singer. So they had that sort of entrepreneur, making lots
Okay.
of money entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, not the
Um,
entrepreneurs. No, not the ones who instantaneously make
no,
cash. Yeah.
exactly. So it was
Okay.
brilliant. So, not that I didn't want to stay in the corporate world. I knew that, but I was very, very fortunate to have a really good introduction into business. And that was it. That was my only, that was the last time I was employed. That was 20 something years ago.
Yeah. Wow, nicely done. Funny enough, I learnt to type when I was at college, and same thing. I remember you brought back memories when I was in Australia. I travelled around Australia for a while, and I randomly ended up as a secretary in a finance firm in the middle of Sydney, and they found it hilarious because I was the only male
I'm sure,
secretary
yeah.
at the time because I had really good typing skills. And I remember they have a national secretaries day once a year there, and they found it hilarious to buy me a bunch of flowers and a card and all
Oh.
this kind of stuff. So yeah, good memories you've just brought back, Carly,
Well,
from
I'm
my
trying to teach
what a
my older
skill.
kids as well. Like it's actually one of them has done it, but it's now everything's done obviously on keyboard. It's a
Yeah,
brilliant
no,
skill.
it's a really useful skill. So yeah, sorry to continue the story. You're at Ernst and Young. You end up in a park in a hut.
Yes.
Can you
How
just
do
fill the
I get
gap?
there? Yeah.
Yeah.
So had a baby really early, I guess, 26, which
It's
is
all
quite
to do with
early.
your husband's problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
You go
yeah.
to Birmingham because of him. You
I
change jobs
know. What was I
because
thinking?
you have a baby.
I
This
know.
Ian's got something to answer for
Crazy.
here.
So yeah, so we had a baby really young, and then that typical kind of thing that lots of women go through, that they want to be at home and they want to work, and how do you combine both? And I thought about running these kind of singing classes for babies, and I thought I'd take my baby with me, and that's how I'm going to do it. And I was looking for premises, and this park hut came up, and it wasn't suitable for singing classes, but it was suitable for a cafe. So That's it. It's really, I was always obsessed with food, and I always knew I wanted to run my own business, but I'd never thought about running a cafe. But it was just an opportunity too good to miss, and so we put in a bid, and that was April 2005.
Right.
Yeah, and
This hut was owned by it was a
the
council hut in
council
essence,
hut.
I
It
remember it.
had
So
no indoor seating. It was just a hut about in the middle of a big 100-acre park, in the middle, near the car park, so not right in the middle, near the car park. But before us, they'd only had hot dogs and ice cream sold in there. There was no one trying to do anything proper, and we started selling. This is 2005, so 15 years ago, we started selling quinoa and falafel, and and people loved it. They really loved it. They didn't know what it was, but they loved it, and they came back and they came back, and we did well, and we learned a lot of lessons. And but the thing is, we were only open 6 months of the year, and we relied on no rain. So after a couple of years, we approached the local council with the idea that we built a permanent building, like an all year round building. And in return, if we built the building, if we raised the money, would they give us a long lease? So we ended up raising 500,000. We did it through half through angel investment and half through the small firms loan guarantee scheme, and we got a 50-year lease in return with the peppercorn
wow.
rent. So
Amazing. Oh, that's really good, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
I speak with a bit of experience because I'm a tenant of the council as well on my seafront
of
premises,
course,
so
yeah,
on the
very similar,
beachfront.
yeah,
So yeah, not dissimilar in the fact.
yeah.
I think we had a 25-year lease with a significant chunk of investment. But now I chair Bournemouth Parks Foundation, and
Ah,
we have a number of parks and public spaces and stuff. And yeah, so we get involved with this. But great, because it's a win-win, isn't it? Because the council really want a good operator to come in, and you get access to 100 acres, which would be pretty tricky to locate yourself
yeah,
in the private
it
sector,
was
wouldn't it?
very win-win, and we were
Yeah.
lucky they just kind of left us alone to get on with it. So we had this. I mean, the thing that was bloody difficult was that there was like no end to the amount of people we could serve, and that's the difficulty with being in parks. People just keep coming, because
Right. That's
because
quite good. If you were at Ernst and Young and somebody told you that, you'd probably go, "Yeah, that sounds like it's got some benefits."
it
Unless it's raining,
it was
Carly.
amazing. We built a beast in the end because where we were, I mean, in some ways, part of it was luck because we just weren't in an area where there were lots of great food establishments. So we were one of the few, and the people came. But it was tough, and because we were only one site, we didn't have the opportunity to attract people and say, we've got lots of opportunities for you to go to our multiple sites. We didn't have any of that, so we really struggled with recruitment over the years, because we were just a bit in the middle of nowhere. But
And where is it? This is on the outskirts of London,
it's
basically.
in a place called Rickmansworth, which is on the Metropolitan line, so it's a real commuter town. So it's on the tube, but it's northwest, just
Yeah.
junction 18 of the M25, so it's kind of right just on the edge. Um, but huge privilege, and I loved it. And even though of course, like anyone, there were days when I just couldn't stand it. There were many more days when I loved it.
Yeah. Well, for many years you described it as your expensive hobby. So, and it
Really
was
was.
really, was it 2013? Yeah. I share this, Carly, with my seafront restaurant. There's so many things that I read when I was doing a bit of research about you. In particular, actually, the one that really made me chuckle is when you were trying to explain to someone, I think it was on another podcast, about the fact that you need to stop serving food between 11:30
Oh
and
my
12.
goodness.
And oh my God, I stood up and gave you a round of applause because exactly the same on the beachfront. And what people don't understand, and I feel almost like popping up, like they scan a QR code and I pop out of the menu and say, "Look, can I just take you behind the scenes in the kitchen where you think that you've just arrived at 11:31 and why shouldn't you better order?" But in reality, there's 97 breakfasts that have already been ordered, and we know that another 100 people are going to turn up at midday for lunch. And it's not that we're being lazy and just sat out there not doing anything. We're just trying to get our shit sorted, ready for the next onslaught. So yeah, these things are a real
It
challenge.
took me quite a long time to realize that I have to put the people that work with me before the customers, because
Yeah.
if I don't, then there's no one to serve the customers. So if yeah, it was. But the great thing about being an independent is that you can make those decisions really quickly. So you get to that point and you go, right, this isn't working, we just have to change it. And then
Mm.
thank goodness you do, because suddenly
Yeah.
your team aren't about to walk out on you.
So what year was it you got the hut? 2005. Is that
2005,
right?
then we
And then 2013, before you said you started to take a salary. What
yeah.
changes did you
Oh
make
my
in
God.
that last period of time that made you profitable?
So up until 2013, my husband, who is an accountant, was still doing a full-time job somewhere else, and then we kind of thought, right, we've got to try and do this. So he came back to the business, and just that working on it together. So we invested really heavily in technology. So solutions like table trackers that allowed us to see where we needed to take the food to really saved us a huge amount of time. But everything was linked up. So from our till systems to the kitchen, we didn't have any paper in our kitchen. The chefs, we had chefs that worked all over the world and they'd never seen anything like the system we were using. They had screens, and they'd kind of come into our kitchen and they'd hate it. And within a week, they said they'd never go back to paper. So everything was digital, and front and back, everything. So like the person on the till could see a live display of how long each ticket was taking. So when you've got someone saying how long will my food be, you can accurately say, well, the last person got served within 23 minutes, or
Amazing.
so it just made us able to say, right,
Yeah.
we've gone beyond, we've got 25 tickets on the, we can't take any more orders for 10 minutes. And what it meant was that it took the pressure off the kitchen, and suddenly they didn't get so wound up. And you know anyone that's worked in a kitchen, it's really tough. So you have to really look after the people that, if you've got a busy place, you have to look after the people that are serving the food.
Yeah.
um
What software was that, as a matter of interest? Was it something
oh
specific, or was it off the shelf kind of
it
thing? It
was
wasn't something you had made?
No, 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 no,
Mm.
no, not something we
Okay.
have made. It's
Yeah.
gone. It's gone. I can't think of it, but it was brilliant. And then the table tracker system, if you've got a lot of tables, that was brilliant, because everyone that came to the counter, we gave them a tracker. Every table had a mat. They put it on the mat. We then could see when they'd arrived at their table which tracker was on which table. If they decided to move tables, which in this sort of kind of park cafe environment people do, as long as they did what we'd asked them and take their tracker with them, we could see what table they were on. So it just
That's really good, isn't
everything
it?
everything just flowed better. So we were just able to turn tables quicker. Um,
And what year did you put this in place?
oh, 2015 probably, so 14,
Awesome.
15, yeah.
I'm feeling behind the times. I'm reasonably techie. I thought with my guys all taking orders on iPads and buzzers and various things, but that sounds like the dream scenario. We have exactly the same. We have a big
Oh, well,
terrace, 100 people outside,
oh,
and it starts
okay.
to rain.
Yeah.
As it is now, it's pouring down. Everybody gets up off the terrace and walks and hides under cover, and we spend the next 30 minutes
Oh,
trying to
it's
work out
horrible.
where
And
all the
and then
bloody
it gets
customers have
people
gone.
down. It gets down, the people that are working
Yeah.
with you. And okay, well, I will after this, I will definitely remember the name of it and send you the
Yeah,
details,
send
because
it
it was
send it
life
through to me. That'd be
changing.
awesome.
It
Yeah, it
really
sounds incredible.
it was
I'm
amazing.
salivating at the
Yeah.
thought of the efficiency
Yeah, it was
and impressed.
efficiency, and that's what we did. And I think that's how we started to turn it around, the efficiency, and just keeping on top of the numbers, and looking at it every day. It was just, and we really got our margins tight by just looking at them all the time, because having an in-house accountant made sure that we were,
Mm.
we just,
All of a sudden,
yeah.
Ian's making up for all those things that you made you do, making up for the Birmingham
Yeah,
time.
Birmingham again. Yeah,
So,
exactly. So
yeah, well,
so it came
he
good.
owed you, to be
You did
fair.
owe me. Yeah,
So,
I'm going to tell
3
him
years
that.
of engineering.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was I thinking? So yeah, so
So,
it really it came good.
yeah, amazing. And at what point, because you became known for having these really strong sort of core values, things like buying local, paying the living wage, offering opportunities to adults with learning difficulties, green energy. Did these things evolve? Had you always had that? I suppose it goes back almost to my question earlier. But what made you turn vegan at 12? Were you always driven, I suppose, by this sort of conscientious thinking about other people?
I don't know. I remember aged 11, running a Beauty Without Cruelty campaign. At school, I loved Anita Roddick and the Body Shop, and I remember getting told off because the photos were too graphic. And I don't know. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, I think I was vegan actually at age 10, and vegetarian age 10, and then vegan age 13. And yeah, I don't know where it came from, but it was always a passion. And it's just, it runs through the core of me,
Yeah.
because it's all possible. I just don't understand why anything has to be done to the detriment of any other being.
So the values in the business then were they there from day one, or because you mentioned selling quinoa out of a hut, I suppose, but did some of those values evolve? I suppose, yeah. What was the motivation to become such a part of the community and to look after your team so well? Was that learnt behaviour?
Um, so the absolute motivation from day one was to prove that you can sell good food to people at an accessible price. That was day one. Um, yeah, looking after people, it just made sense. I don't know that I've ever stopped to think about. It just makes business sense. You look after your people, they stay. It's just much easier to run a business that way.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily me being, thoughtful or kind. It's partly selfish.
Hmm.
It's how to look. It's how to to create a business that's going to still be serving people in 5-10 years time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just love the idea of making it accessible to lots of people, because actually it makes it much more interesting to work in a place where all sorts of people come. Um, so the more accessible, the more price accessible it is, the more diversity in your customers, and therefore the more interesting the job.
Yeah, it can be really hard to do in. Well, you saw it because of how hard it was to make money for many years, but it can be a phenomenally tight margin sector. So sometimes I don't. I think it can be disingenuous to owners to say, "Oh, you're all ruthless sods. That's why you've got 0 hours contracts and don't pay the living wage." All too often, they're just fighting, every possible corner, I suppose, to try and keep their business afloat. And I remember chatting to Andrew Stephen and saying that the definition of a sustainable restaurant is one that's still open. So, yeah, how do you find that fine line, I suppose, between you don't want to exploit people, but you've also got to recognise that it can be an incredibly hard sector, particularly at the smaller end, to make money.
Um, I guess the way we did it was through high volumes of sales. That was it. We just managed to. We had a very high payroll. I think 45%
Wow.
of our turnover went on people.
Yeah, that's
Um,
incredible. And you still made money.
and we still and we managed to, and we were just really worked on our margin really hard, and we managed to get it to about 75%. I think it was the best we got it. And it was just about really being careful and thinking about every, not wasting. And but it was mostly about sales. We managed it because we created a product that people wanted to come for, and then we never had to worry about sales. The sales were, in fact, we had to worry about being able to supply the sales, because we struggled to do it sometimes. Um, but I think that was it. We just managed. We created a product that people wanted and that they continually came back for, and that was how we managed to pay
Yeah.
people well.
Well, amazing, and won all sorts of awards and recognition along the journey. So, what made you did you decide you wanted to sell it, or did someone come and make you an offer you couldn't refuse?
No. We, like probably lots of people that run restaurants, we thought about selling it a few times. When you just think,
Oh, lots of
that's
times.
yeah, when
Raining
that's
days in the winter.
I've
Yeah.
got no kitchen porter, I can't do this anymore,
Oh,
or I've got no,
yeah.
Um, so no, and I think it it got to the point when we just really struggled to find people, and I felt that people's expectations were getting higher, and I found it was harder to meet them, and it was making us miserable more than it was making us happy. Um, I think is simple, and also we've done it for 14 years, and I think also maybe we'd taken it to the point where we didn't know where else we could take it, and there didn't seem to be enough potential anymore. And I think potential is what I find exciting, knowing that there's always something around the corner. And of course there was more that we could have done, but I couldn't see it at the time. And luckily an offer did come in, and it, yeah, very fortuitous that we sold it when we did. I say that with a
Yeah,
heavy
this
heart
is
for all the people that are in the business at the moment. But yes, for
yeah,
us it was fortuitous. And we hadn't thought about moving away, so we were living in Hertfordshire, and we hadn't thought about moving to Devon, but we sold it, and then we found ourselves, in a situation where we had options. And when you run a business that's 5 minutes walk from your home and you serve your community every day for 14 years, it leaves a big hole when you sell it. We were very emotionally connected to this place, so it felt like a good idea to move away from it, which it was.
mm. Yeah, and all the way you certainly did, didn't you? One extreme to the other. You're in Devon.
We're in Devon.
So, was there a particular motivation for Totnes as a matter of interest? Or?
No, no. I mean, if anyone knows about Totnes, it is its own little unique bubble. Lots of slightly kind of hippie-ish um, types. And it's very food orientated. It's also situated between the coast and Dartmoor. I mean, it's geographically, it's just a wonderful place to live. But just lots of people that are active in lots of different campaigns and slightly alternative ways of living.
Yeah, you enjoying it?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
excellent.
It's a very different world. People talk to you here. I lived in a place where I'd go to the playground, and I'd notice that people would put their heads down just in case I made eye contact with them. It wasn't that they
It's
weren't
because you were the
nice, or
crazy
that,
lady from the park,
well,
Carly.
maybe it was that, yeah, maybe. But just people just were shyer and not so keen. Whereas I just am always craving conversation and wanting to know about people. And here, because I think it's a place where lots of people have moved to from other places, so we're all really keen to find out about each other. So there's just constant conversation, which I just really enjoy.
Yeah, nice. No, it's beautiful, and so many easy access to so much awesome countryside and the coastline down there. So it's great. So well done, great. That would lovely end to the story if we could just say, yeah. So you've done it. You've been on your journey. You thought never going to do hospitality again. It's insane. I'm just going to chill out in Devon and have a nice life. But you're clearly insane because you've come up with this awesome. And thanks, by the way, you sent me an incredibly comprehensive and amazing document that I think is genuinely brilliant. There were so many little
Oh,
nuggets and ideas and
well,
little
thank
bits
you.
of wisdom in there. It's like it was more of a manifesto for what hospitality
Oh,
should
well, brilliant.
and
I'm
could be
so
like. So
delighted you saw it that
yeah,
way.
I really, really, really enjoyed it. So OPOP or OPOP, what on earth is that, Carly?
So, we said we'd never open a restaurant again.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been on this journey.
but the thing is, when it's all that you know, it's really difficult to think, what else is going to make me as happy and make me as
Yeah.
fulfilled as that. And the idea kind of came to me kind of at the beginnings here before we knew the word COVID, and I was just thinking about our town centres and how charity shops seem to be everywhere, and I wondered if we could create a restaurant version of a charity shop. That's kind of where I started. So where we sold food that had been kind of intercepted was previously going to be wasted, with the same idea of charity shops, and where the kind of the overall purpose was a kind of social purpose rather than a profit purpose. And so that's kind of where the idea started, and then we've spent the last 8 months developing this idea of how you could possibly run a restaurant on a social enterprise um, model without being profit driven, because I just keep saying, not independents. Of course, there are loads of independent restaurants that are brilliantly run, but in the casual dining market, there's a lot of chains that are kind of carbon copies of one another, and they're run by venture capitalists. They're not run for the benefit of the people that work in them, and a lot of the people that work in them aren't happy, because I've read a lot of reviews on the Indeed website, where you can read lots of employee reviews from lots of different companies. Um, so we just thought, right, let's take everything we learned from running a restaurant and everything we heard from the people we worked with, and let's think about what would the best kind of restaurant look like. So we started with that without thinking whether we could make it financially viable. We kind of just sat down and spent months thinking about how it could be the best, and then we kind of retrospectively thought, right, that's how a brilliant restaurant would look. Right, how's that going to make money? Um, and it's not going to be easy. So this is the idea. It's called OPOP, one plate, one price. So the idea is that it's more of a canteen. It's kind of no frills dining. It's breakfast and lunch, not dinner. The idea of not being dinner is to create a restaurant where it's more attractive to chefs because they don't have to work evenings. And it's about, especially now with a lot of people working from home, it's about bringing people together at lunchtime and at breakfast time for healthy, delicious, nutritious food that is affordable. Um, and that's simply it. It's just a kind of no frills dining experience, but it's a restaurant that is run for the benefit of the people that work there, and eventually will become employee owned and driven forward and by the people that work there. And one of the kind of key concepts is, because we don't want to run lots of sites, is that we bring people in to run our sites, our partners, that may not necessarily have access to funds to start up a restaurant, but that have all the right skills that a lot of restaurants are lacking. The kind of the hosting, the drive, the personality, the love of hospitality, because it's a lifestyle. You have to love it. And so we bring people in that earn ownership. They bank equity each year. So instead of taking a bonus, they bank equity, and eventually they're building up. They're building that. It's a kind of equality thing. It's spreading equality because they're building ownership of something, investing their time in it. They're not going to come out with nothing. Um,
Mm.
yes, so it's all
Yeah.
very ambitious and slightly utopian, and
Yeah, no, it's great. But
and
you, yeah,
and we are aware that there's lots of ifs and buts. So what we're doing is we're going to create the first site ourselves and improve it, and see and well, try and prove it, see if it can work, and then if we can make it work in one site, then we go out for funding and we roll it out.
okay, nice. Two things, I suppose. One is I saw some really good things talking about sort of, I suppose, chef quality food without evening dining. And I was doing some research. I can't remember what the trigger was, and it was probably 18 months ago. But loads of really interesting sort of cafes in Melbourne specifically seem to come up in Australia, and there just seemed to be this real kind of cafe culture, but restaurant quality food. But same thing, yeah, just doing breakfast and lunch. And I thought, what an amazing thing that is as a chef, to be able to do the sort of food that's still creative and you still love and you want to do, but not have to do it in the evening. I did wonder who all these people were who had time to go and enjoy it midweek and didn't get out in the evening.
Well,
But I think
look,
it's
who knows? We might be going, lots of people talking about 4-day weeks.
yeah,
If we start living in a world where more people are working from home, more people are doing 4-day weeks, not everyone is working Monday to Friday, there are just going to be more people around. And actually, I hope that we're going to start living in a world where people take their kids out for proper food more as well, rather than leave the kids at home with a babysitter. Other cultures, people go out with their kids, so lunchtime suddenly becomes more realistic if you've got young kids than evenings.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, I agree,
it, it's
100%.
not
Yeah,
it's not the way it is here at the moment. I agree, and a lot of people when we ran our cafe used to come and say, "Gosh, this sort of thing exists in Australia, but I've never seen it here."
Yeah, well, we get similar on the beach. And I said earlier, before we started chatting on air, but the promenade was super busy today, and we've only got a little takeaway open on the beach. So there are definitely plenty of people about. We do a scheme, Good Food for Little People, where you can have anything on the menu for half price, whatever you want, which breaks my chef's heart when he has
So
to
the way it
chop a
should
sea
be.
bass in half. Yeah, or a steak. And he said, well, how can I make money if I've chopped that fish in half? And I was going, well, long-term investment, isn't it? Those kids hopefully will be coming back in 15 years and having a bowl of mussels instead of a
Oh,
bowl of chips,
yeah, absolutely.
which would be
Cheers to
nice.
that.
So the one price, one plate bit of this, though, you're not talking about only having one option on the menu, are you? Or you're just saying that everything's going to be the same
No, so
price?
it's
How does that
it's
work?
so it's kind of canteen style. So the chefs prepare a range of dishes, some hot, some cold, plant-based mostly, and it all gets set out, and then people come and tell the chefs serve it. So they spend the morning making it, then they spend the lunchtime serving it. So you might have, to choose from. You might have, I don't know, a shakshuka, a grain bowl, a kind of some sort of ragu, um, some sort of I don't know, a salad, and you just say whatever you want on your plate. So it's you can have one thing only, or you can have a combination of things. But it's all good for you, and it's all ready. It's all
Mm,
instant, and it keeps being prepared and topped up as the lunchtime goes on.
okay. Is there a difference between nutritious and healthy? By which I mean probably nutritious. You can have a chocolate brownie that's made in a factory and full of garbage, or you can have one that's freshly made and isn't necessarily healthy, but it is at least not. It's made of whole foods, I suppose. Where do you
Yeah.
stand
I
on
mean, I
that?
think the thing is, we're about feeding people. So it's feeding, not fattening, is kind of my mantra. So that doesn't mean we're not going to sell cakes. It just means that in our dishes, we're going to be careful about how much fat we add. We're not going to not add fat because fat's tasty, but we're just going to be careful about it, and think about what we're doing rather than just um, you know cook with lots of butter and cream, because of course butter and cream is tasty. So I just think that you can have a balance. So no, I'm not anti at all
Mm,
in any way. Calories or sugar or anything, we absolutely need a balanced diet. But this is about feeding people. This is about meals. This is about knowing that you can kind of eat healthy and indulge occasionally. Um, and I think people say that one of the trends that we're going to see coming out is people wanting healthy indulgences, so managing to combine the two, which I think is really possible if you're clever and with your ingredients, and if you cook with instinct, you can absolutely create delicious food that is just good for you.
Yeah, I opened my eyes up. So I went on to a predominantly plant-based diet a couple of years ago, and actually the thing that was most, because people are like, "Well, how do you give all this stuff up? How do you give it up?" And I was like, you know what? It's been fascinating because I haven't given up some stuff. I've added loads of things to my diet that I didn't used to eat, and I'd added all these rare sort of random grains from hodmedod's and papers like that, and fava beans, and
Yeah,
just a load of food. And it got me interested in food. I'd been surrounded by chefs for the last 15 years, so I'd become a little bit lazy in the kitchen. I
yeah,
just
that
asked chef
happens.
to cook something, but actually, yeah, they weren't cooking the style of food, so it really reignited my passion for food. And I remember one day sort of tucking into a plant-based burger, and it wasn't just that it wasn't meat, but it was full of beetroot and spices and quinoa, and it was genuinely healthy, wild rice. And I was like, not only does it taste incredible, but it's really good for you as well. And I thought that's amazing. It was much more complex, much more flavoursome than a beef burger.
And it's
Having
achieving that
said that,
balance. It's harder.
hmm. Yeah, well, so another experience I had is I opened a juice bar in our town centre it was last summer or the summer before, and it was literally fresh juices, fresh smoothies, all really really good sort of food because all the stuff that's available in the town centre is the normal sort of garbage.
Yeah.
And it was a really desperately disappointing experience in the fact that I know if we'd been selling churros and cappuccinos and chips, we would have made a fortune. And we lost about 30 grand over the course of a year trying to run this place and ended up closing it. And I just thought it's too early. There's not enough people at the moment who want to pay for a freshly squeezed carrot and apple juice compared to a frothy cappuccino and a pan au chocolat.
No.
How
Not
are
yet.
you confident? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I really, because I love, I was salivating as you describing the menu.
Yeah.
But, you're going to refuse to sell, fish and chips? Are you?
Well, just there'd be nothing like that on our menu. But it's because there are places you can go if you want that. This isn't about going out to a restaurant to eat. This is about going somewhere where you need feeding. You want lunch, and you don't want to cook it, and you'd quite like to eat it with someone else or in a busy, buzzy atmosphere. And this is somewhere because it's not priced like a restaurant is. You can go more frequently. So yeah, I think a juice bar maybe where you also sold churros as well. That might have been fine. What a shame.
That would have been
That
the
would have been the
compromise.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think times definitely it's going more in that direction. But yeah, you might be right. Who knows? Can you convince all the people, especially when you're not in a city? If we were in London, there are lots of people that are doing kind of more out the way things. But who knows? And that's why we've got to try it.
I'm not. Yeah, no, 100%.
I
think
agree.
it's brilliant.
I agree.
I would.
We're
be
winging
there.
it a bit.
Well, but you've got a very comprehensive philosophy manifesto behind it, which I think is stick by those values and that integrity, and people will see that you've done it properly. So, mentioning cities and locations was exactly my next question. Really, where is it Tottenham? Is that where the first one's going to be? Where do you go with this concept to test it?
No, we've just agreed today a site in Ashburton, which is a town on the edge of Dartmoor, beautiful town.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our kind of test bed, our test and learn centre, but it's also going to be the start of our training school, because one of the things that we're building alongside a restaurant is a training school, not just to train people in how to behave or cook or make coffees, but actually how to run a business, because a lot of people that work in hospitality have a dream to go on and run their own restaurant. So if we can show them how we think restaurants should be run, then we can hopefully kind of create this group of change makers that go out to run their own restaurants better too. So we've got this site in Ashburton that we've literally just agreed on today. So we're hopeful that at some point next year, who knows, it's a crazy time to be taking on a restaurant.
I love it.
But
you're mental. I wonder how many people are signing up for restaurants in lockdown.
No, I know.
No idea. But I think it's brilliant. And Ashburton actually is quite a touristy area, isn't it? So
having that,
would you try and have that ready for next summer?
We'll try and have it ready for next summer. Absolutely, yeah. Who knows? And it's a great site. So if next year is a write-off, well, I still think we think it's worth it, because the right place doesn't come up often. So and we've got a lot of work to do before we're ready to go anyway. So
okay. What makes it the right place? A particularly interesting building, is it?
It's a very funky building. It's very Shoreditch. That's what I keep telling people. It's been created by two very, very talented designers that set their own restaurant up and decided it's not for them, but they've created this brilliant space in a great town. That's amazing. Near enough our home that it's accessible, but not so near with like our last place that we walk out our front door and see our customers. So it's enough of a distance. And the Southwest, in terms of, because one of the things that OPOP is going to be about is about using intercepted food, going to suppliers that haven't got a market for everything they've grown, and saying because we don't have a menu, because we're creating dishes depending on what we can get, not on depending on what our menu says, that we can take anything from any farm that can't find a market from it. So we're in a prime position in the Southwest to be able to do that, because we are just surrounded by so many brilliant growers.
Yeah, incredible spaces. Yeah. Do you know Oddbox? Do you have them down there, the veg delivery people?
No, I've heard of them, but no. Yeah. Riverford is around the corner, so everyone here is a Riverford customer.
Riverford, yeah. Well, funny enough, so I've been Riverford for a long time. I've had Guy's been on the podcast a couple of times actually, and fascinating. Love what he's done with the business.
Yes.
And I feel a bit guilty because I had regular weekly deliveries, and then Oddbox came along, and the downside with Oddbox is they're not organic. The benefit of them is it's exactly that. It's food that was going to go to waste for whatever reason. So it's odd sizes, whatever it might be. So my compromise is that I have 1 week I have Riverford, and the second week I have Oddbox.
There you go.
And I find that the little sweet spot of compromise.
Perfect. We all have to find our sweet spot. Yeah.
Yeah, and my wife and I are so tragically excited. It comes on a Tuesday, and both of us, oh, it's Tuesday. I wonder what's going to come in the box,
Oh,
and then
I totally
we get to
relate
see
to
it
that.
all. Yeah, I love it. And if I could do it in the restaurant, it'd be brilliant. We've tried to do this with fish, where the fishmonger just brings whatever you've caught on the boat that day, bring it
Yeah.
in, and if you've got the right team and brigade of chefs, can be brilliant. The challenge of it is, yeah, very busy seafront location in the summer is, how do you change the menus each day, and typos on the menu because they've typed them up with what's coming that day and printing them and stuff. And yeah, blackboards would be perfect. Although now that we're going more tech based with people ordering on their phones, it's much easier to
Yeah.
just
Yes,
change
yeah,
stuff
that's true. Yeah.
on the
Well,
fly. So
doesn't have to go away, the idea. It's just one that can be worked on. It's
yeah,
a brilliant way
100%.
to do
Yeah.
it, isn't it?
Brilliant. Yeah, no, really good. Yeah, much better for so many reasons. So talking of great ideas, I just wanted to randomly, but you talk, is it Belu or Belu, or the water
Hello.
collaboration
Yes.
project? So we give away free water to
Yeah.
everybody down in our restaurant. Same, we refuse to sell bottled water, which I
Brilliant.
think is great. We
Yeah.
do the sort of top ups. What I hadn't ever done is consider this idea of a contribution for the water. And you raised 23K in 2 years. But this Belu, what was this collaboration? Did they supply you with some kit
Yes.
to filter the
So
water? Then did they?
Bellu, it was just brilliant. Bellu are a bottled water company. They give 100% of their profits to WaterAid, and they came up with this filtration system that we pioneered, where they gave us the kit, which was two things. They gave us a hot water boiler so we could do instant hot water, and they also gave us a filtration kit which allowed us to offer still and sparkling, chilled and filtered water, um, just running tap water into it. So what we did is, for every hot water-based drink, which would be an Americano or a tea, we gave 10p of that back to Bellu. And for the tap water that we could offer people, so we created these very funky copper taps at the end of our counter where people could just fill up their glasses with still or sparkling water. We just asked for a donation. So we had a people queued up, but it was a cafe. People queued up and they'd come. We did sell bottled water because some people took away. Lots of people, they were going into the park, so they wanted to take away. So they come to the till with their bottled water, and we'd say, great, but did you know that there's free tap water and it's sparkling or still at the end? We just asked for a donation, and most people would put the bottled water back. And we were at a position where we could afford to lose the income from that bottled water. And they put a donation in. So between the 10p for the hot water that we gave and the donations for the tap water, we gave 20, I think it was 23,000 in 2 years. It was
Amazing.
just a
Love that.
win-win. It was just
Yeah.
brilliant. So yeah, do speak to Bellu,
Yeah, I was going to
Belu.
say, yeah, I
They're
know the guys. Well,
brilliant.
I know the company. I don't know them personally, but is that something that they, if they got this bit of kit, is that a model of theirs where they'll give, cafes the
Yes, and
kit
they've
if they
got
get it?
numerous. I haven't spoken to them recently, but they know that I want to work with them again on OPOP, and
Mm,
I know that they've got more things that they've developed now, and they work with a lot of restaurants now. But please
mm.
speak to them. It's just win-win. It just makes
Yeah, I
so
think it's a
much
great.
sense.
Yeah, it's a great
And
idea.
because you
So.
can offer sparkling, it just suddenly people, they feel like they're getting something, something better than, it's just not, if it's still water, they might as well just turn the tap on. But if it's sparkling, well, it's something they're used to paying for. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, really, really good idea. Okay, great. Another thing, because I'm hoping that you might have investigated this. Sorry, Carly. It's like
oh,
yeah,
please
it's
keep
become
going.
a
I love it.
yeah one-on-one help session. But lots of people will be cheering you on. Pay what you can afford. So I love this concept. I can't remember historically in our business when we thought. I think it's in the depths of winter when we really struggled to get people in. We've thought, should we just do a night where literally, people pay what they can afford, and you cook them this nice menu, and it would. I always think it would work really well for me and my friends because we all understand food and we're
Yeah.
decent human beings, and we would absolutely pay. But so many people that I speak to seem to have absolutely no comprehension of why restaurants charge what they charge, and the fact they can walk into a supermarket and buy a chicken breast for £1
Yeah.
and are outraged by they have to pay it. Have you investigated this to see is there any people or any places where this is working?
Not in the UK.
Right.
In Australia, there's a few. In America, there's a few. Um, there's people that have tried it in the past in the UK, but no one's kind of. It seems to be a little bit amateur how it's been tried here. But in Australia, there's a group. There's a couple of groups that's how they run. We're very very clear that this is experimental, and if this isn't financially viable, this is not the major part of our project, because
Yeah, no, I saw you said that. Yeah.
it's absolutely fundamental that we know that it's a utopian idea, but the idea is it's kind of designed to be an equalizer, acknowledging that material wealth can ebb and flow, and it can be out of our control, and we want people to always be able to come and enjoy a meal out, because we think that loneliness is a huge problem in our society, and actually being able to share a meal outside of your house can be a huge differentiator. So we are going to have a one price plate, and there is going to be a pay what you can afford option, and you can never pay less than half price. So we have to cover our costs. But that overall the under or overpayments will be managed centrally. This is once we build up a group, and the individual site profit and losses will be kind of recompense for the underpayments, and conversely the same if we have overpayments. Ideally it kind of balances out. There will be some sites where more people overpay, and there'll be some sites where more people underpay, but this is a huge exercise in educating people about why our plate is one price, and what this pay what you can afford model is designed to do. So we kind of think, as the chain grows, we touch a wider spectrum of our community, that we think the rebalancing will increase. We don't know. We've seen it work on paper. We've never been to these places. We've read about places where they've made it work. It really involves, a lot of discussion and explaining. It might actually slow us down to the point that we can't do it, because this is all about, high volumes of sales. But we like the idea that, we should live in a more inclusive society, and we're not always, it's circumstances depending on where we're born and how we're educated and what opportunities and who we know can dictate, our wealth, and they're not necessarily things that we have control over. So we like the idea that in this perfect world everything is a little more equal, but who knows? It's experimental. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, it's brilliant, because I love it. I mean, if I was in the supermarket and there was somebody who was 10p short, or if there's somebody on the street that you genuinely think you can help, you would absolutely do so. And I love the idea, or not even the idea, the reality is, and I think that's the good thing that's come off the back of COVID and hospitality, is it's not until something's taken away that you realise how much you actually appreciate it. And in fact, you touched
enormous,
on you touched on this sort of the expectation, I suppose, of the public, and how that expectation had only become harder and harder to manage, because I guess it's an incredibly competitive sector. People are adding more and more complexity to their menus. It was getting harder and harder. Whether that, I think again, I read or heard you talking about, was that an oversupply of restaurants, or was it just the wrong type of restaurants? But yeah, customers became very demanding, and this came up when I was chatting to Guy at Riverford as well, around how much people wanted to be able to change their boxes and have certain food items, and that in COVID it was a complete meltdown of their systems, because it reminded them of how easy it was when they started to just put nigh on the same food in every box and send it out. And to be fair, it's a bit like you'll have done this in breakfast service. The difference
my goodness,
between
breakfast.
saying a full English is a full English, and if you want to take off mushrooms, add sausage, and have 2 pieces of bacon and an extra portion of beans, it just slows down the process to the point where,
isn't it?
people have got
you just wouldn't believe it if you hadn't done it, would you?
No, people look at you as if you're absolutely bonkers. You're like, really? I can't change my sausage. I'm like, oh God, how long have you got? Can I say, just come to the kitchen and watch? If I press this, you can make changes button, and then just watch the speed that the whole kitchen falls over.
Face.
Oh, yeah. I've gone off on a right tangent, Carly. I've got no idea what I was talking about. But I love this idea of trying this pay what you can afford. I think it'd be brilliant.
I think, that everything, we're just thinking, we're just going to try lots of different things.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was like, as I was cheering as I was reading your document, as I got to that, and the fact you thought about it so well, that some places be under and over and it would be centrally managed and costed. And I was like, wow, you've had a few bottles of wine and some real thought gone into.
It's been lockdown, we've had lots of time to think about
it. Yeah. You shouldn't have moved to Tottenham. You should have stayed in London. You'd have been far too stressed.
If it works, who knows where it can go to.
But it needs somebody to trailblaze it. So is this a movement? Because lots of the stuff I was reading, I was like, look, and it's a bit like the SRA. We had this conversation that so much of what the SRA do is behind a paywall, and yet so much of the messaging that they're giving out to genuinely change the world needs to be free. Do you see this sort of concept? A lot of the stuff you're talking about, is this a movement rather than a business? Because you can try and retain control of all of this, or I suppose you can educate people and release it into the world and hope that all boats are lifted on a rising tide.
That's a lovely. I've not heard that expression.
I
Um,
love it. It's one of my
yeah.
favourites.
Oh, that's a big question because
It is.
so yes, in an ideal world, it's open source and it's a blueprint for others to copy. If we manage to make a success of it, but also obviously, in order to do the good we want to do, we have to invest our profits back into the organization, and some of those profits are going to come from selling the blueprint or helping people or train people. So I guess probably what there'll be is a bit of both. That if we can prove it and make it work, then it will be very available for people to see. But that what we'll hope is that people will come to our training centre and learn firsthand and work with us, so that that's how we can generate income to to kind of fund our own project. Because what we obviously don't want to do is set something up and then it just gets replicated by other people, and the people that we're trying to work with don't benefit. So it's going to have to be a very careful balance.
Mm. Yeah, it's the same with the SRA, really, isn't it? The
Yeah,
more people that pay and join, then the more people they can help and the more messaging they can
yeah,
get across.
and it's
And
just careful not
again,
to dilute it too much.
yeah, you need to meet. Do you know Mercato Metropolitano,
No.
the street food places in London? And Andrea Rasker is the CEO. But some
Okay,
of the
I'm
sort of
writing it down.
yeah, you'd enjoy half an hour, completely and utterly bonkers. But he really believes in sort of food as part of the community and his sort of what's it called, MMs, his sort of movement behind the scenes. I've done a podcast with him.
Okay,
Listen to the
I'll
first
look
one,
it up.
not the second one.
Okay.
Go back and listen to the first podcast I did with Andrea. And yeah, apart from being a sort of a one man PR machine who can really talk, but there's some amazing little nuggets of
Great.
how much difference food can make to
Okay,
community and
I shall
people.
look
He
forward to it.
confiscates if you rock up at the doors of his place in London, the security guards will look in your bag, and if you've got a big branded drink like Coke or Sprite or something, you can have it back when you leave. But basically, it's confiscated because he
Wow.
so believes in not having big branded. They make their
Yeah.
own beer. They only work with people who share their values and share their ethos. And being a
Amazing.
big multinational is not one of their values, and
No.
therefore you're not even allowed on the premises if you've got
That's
it. And I
very
was like,
brave.
having the balls, yeah, exactly. Having the bravery to do stuff like that is, yeah, it reminds me of some of the stuff that you want to do, which I think is fantastic.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
running out of time. So, if you went back, I think it's a brilliant journey. It's a brilliant story. It's a great hospitality adventure. It's why I love having these conversations, because I think it's such a great industry full of nice, creative people and decent people. The people who work in hospitality
It was very
serve people and
real,
they look
isn't it?
after people.
It's a
Yeah, I
very
love it.
real thing to do.
It is, yeah, love it for so many reasons. If you went back to your sort of, that young self who, however many years ago it was now, sort of 15, 16 years ago, in that hut, and you looked over the counter and saw you in there in those early, maybe that first week, what advice would you give yourself with all the knowledge you've learned in the last 15 or 16 years? Any words of advice or reassurance you could
Oh
give yourself?
gosh. What would I advise? I wouldn't change anything. I think unfortunately, really boringly, I'd advise myself to have a tighter view on of margin and cash flow. That's where it nearly all went wrong for us. Even though Ian's an accountant, but because he wasn't full time in the business, we just didn't keep a close eye on it, and we let it get to the stage where luckily we had people that put their hands in their pockets and helped us out. But if we hadn't, we would have lost everything. Um, yeah, sadly,
Yeah.
it's a really boring one. It's not
No,
some,
it's brilliant. It's good.
yeah,
It's good advice.
unfortunately,
It's,
yeah,
yeah, learn
but
fast.
but
Yeah. And that's the frustration, I think, isn't it? Is that so much of hospitality is great fun and it's people and there's so much good stuff you want to do and we want to feed the poor and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, if you run out of money, you've
yeah,
got no
you've
business
got nothing. Yeah,
left.
but no,
And
I,
it's
I
so
wouldn't change
frustrating.
anything. It's everything has taught me something, and mostly I've loved it.
Amazing. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. No, I share that. God, when you were chatting earlier, and I think, yeah, the number of times I've sat down with my wife and gone, she's a primary school teacher, so she's got another career anyway, and but listens to me and go, yeah, I might be getting towards the end of my hospitality adventure
Yeah,
because much as I love it, it's people management
yes,
generally that becomes the challenge. And the flip side is, yeah, there's just so much I love. And it's part of the reason for doing this podcast, actually, is it's energy in, energy out. And there were some periods of time where you go through, there was one summer where we lost our brigade early in the summer, and it meant that we needed to try and rebuild, right in peak season. And by the end of that summer, I sat down with my one of my senior managers, and we said, look, we're never going to go through a summer like that again. If it happens one more time, we're all out, basically. We're going to go and get other jobs. But the flip side is, energy in-wise, I have these great conversations and speak to so many other awesome human beings, and you think, it really is a great sector. So, yeah, well done. Brilliant story.
Got the bug, it's very difficult to think of anything else that will make you, want to get up in the morning as much as this does.
Yeah, no, it really does. Okay, so look, where should people go if they want to follow either OPOP or your journey, or are you personally on a particular sort of social channel where people can keep up to date with what you're doing?
No, it's just all under OPOP. So we are at opop.org.uk or opop_ one plate one price on Instagram, and come follow us and see if we are going to walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
Yeah, well, you've got the experience. I think you will. I feel your passion and energy come across.
I'm really looking forward to trying.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I will definitely come in nicer times. We wanted to do this face-to-face originally. It was COVID that got in the way of that, wasn't it? But I will come down. You're not too far away from me.
Really,
and
no.
I love Dartmoor and Ashburton, beautiful part of the world. So, I'll be watching, and I will rock up and pay extra for pay what you can afford. Well, hopefully, to be fair, working in hospitality, by then I might be one of the people coming in half price. But
you'll be welcome.
Do my best,
you will be welcome.
Good.
Thanks, Mark.
Way.
It's really been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Cheers, Carly. Right, I hope you are feeling inspired, and I very much hope you enjoyed Carly's infectious enthusiasm and stories. You really should go over and read more about Carly's businesses on her website. Links via the show notes on humansofhospitality.co.uk. And I'll also ask Carly if she's happy that she shares the manifesto style document that we discussed a couple of times during the conversation. If so, I'll either pop it in the newsletter or via the Patreon page. And if you enjoyed the conversation, once again, please do subscribe, rate and review the podcast for me, and I'll be exceptionally grateful. But for now, I'll be back next Monday morning when, all being well, I should be chatting to Naomi Duncan from Chefs in Schools about the incredible work that charity does. Okay, enjoy your week.